Hello, everyone. Welcome to our United We Dream workshop on immigration. My name is Claudia Quinonez. I'm originally from Bolivia, came to the US in 2006 at the age of 11, and I proudly serve as the state's organizing manager at United We Dream. And I'll pass it over to Luz and then Andrea for their introductions as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chavez Gonzalez. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm a current senior at Trinity Washington University, and I'm United We Dream's DMV organizer. I am also a DACA recipient. I came to this country when I was 4 years old from the city of La Paz, Bolivia. And ever since then, I've become an active organizer in my community, mobilizing undocumented youth from all over the DC metro area to show our power and our strength. One of those youth is actually our next speaker, who is Andrea. And she will be introducing and sharing her story.
Andrea, I think you're muted.
Oh no. Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Anaya-Sandoval. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm a freshman at Marymount University and I'm a United We Dream DMV youth organizer. I'm originally born from El Salvador. My mother and I migrated to the United States when I was 5 years old. We settled in Silver Spring, Maryland, and have been residing here ever since. Growing up undocumented, I faced immense obstacles, such as lack of healthcare and housing. I grew up with the fear of one day hearing a knock on my door and being ripped away from my home. Out of all my family members, I'm the only one with a possible pathway to status. But that hope was stripped away when Trump announced he would try to end DACA back in September of 2017. I was 1 month away from turning the age of eligibility. Since then, DACA has been on limbo, continually facing the courts with the risk of it being taken away permanently. Living right outside of DC, I witnessed the protests and fights led by immigrant youth to get back DACA and liberty for all 11 million undocumented people. Seeing this fueled me to join the movement, and I've been fighting alongside United We Dream ever since. So who are we? United We Dream is the largest immigrant youth-led organization in the country. We create welcoming spaces for young people, regardless of immigration status, to support, engage, and empower them to make their voices heard and to win.
Thank you for sharing that, Andrea. But before we go into the history of United We Dream, could you share with us the state of play, how immigrant communities are feeling during these times, especially under COVID, DACA, and so on?
Yeah. So right now, living undocumented, I am DACA eligible, but have not been able to apply for DACA because again, DACA has been in limbo. And it's scary because I have no protection and I don't have access to things I just mentioned, like healthcare, and I don't receive a stimulus check. My family wasn't able to receive any type of care, like help from the government. So, if we got COVID, we weren't able to, go see a doctor because, that costs us money and bills. And it's just a scary time to live in because we know that we don't have protection. We know that we don't have health care. We're not getting help from the government, and DACA's in limbo. So for us right now, it's a consistent battle. And we're hoping that when Biden gets into office, we're going to demand him to reinstall DACA permanently, give stimulus checks to undocumented people, include undocumented people in these COVID packages, and we're hoping that we liberate our 11 million undocumented people that are currently living in the country.
Thank you for sharing that, Andrea. So now I'm going to take you down memory lane and talk to all of you about the history of United We Dream. So the year was 2010, and United We Dream had spent endless hours tirelessly fighting for our dreams, pushing for politicians to prioritize the passage of the Federal Dream Act, We engaged in some of the most powerful nonviolent direct actions. Some immigrant youth walked from Florida to Washington, D.C. Others engaged in sittings all over the country, from Arizona to the hallways of the Heart Senate building in D.C. That year, we made our voices be heard by coming out of the shadows and claiming to be undocumented and unafraid. I remember 2010 very well because I was a high school student. I was very ashamed, very, very afraid, and no one knew I was undocumented. And I remember that this became a movement, and I remember hearing of the coming out of the shadows and other immigrant youth throughout the nation saying that they were undocumented and unafraid. And that's when I decided to organize and join the movement. This was done during a time when undocumented immigrants were labeled as terrorists. At that time, when the most anti-immigrant laws were being passed and implemented across the nation, we knew then that there was no turning back in our destiny, nor there was turning back in the fight to survive. And then in December of that same year, we saw how far we really were from achieving justice for our families to making our dreams come true. It was all lost in the hands of 5 Democrats that were afraid to stand up and step up in the right side of history. But it was also lost in the hands of racist conservative Republicans that applauded the horrendous act of Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona of dehumanizing immigrants in this country. Although that year we lost the DREAM Act, we gained incredible leaders across the nation and developed new skills. We were not ready to give up the fight. We owe it to ourselves to continue, but most importantly, we owe it to our communities across the nation that had found a small sense of hope in our movement and in our actions of resistance. In 2011, immigrant youth began taking action and began demanding for executive action from the Obama administration. And ultimately, in 2012, DACA took place. That was one of the many incredible campaigns that were led by United We Dream, but it was not the only one. We have led many campaigns since 2010 when United We Dream was officially established. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about our most recent fight, and please, Luz and Andrea, feel free to chime in. And I know that we're also going to talk about our most recent campaign that was just launched this past Thursday, which we are very excited about. But I'm going to start with our most recent fight, which was our fight for in the Supreme Court to win DACA back. For almost the last 2 years, immigrant youth from all over the nation decided to lead walkouts, knowing the importance of DACA and what DACA has brought to many of our lives. In November of 2018, hundreds of immigrant youth decided to take over the streets of Washington, D.C. and other places like New Mexico, like California, like Florida, to demand the Supreme Court to have a vote on behalf of DACA. Prior to that, in 2017, we pushed Congress to pass legislation like the Clean Dream and Promise Act that would allow people like myself to have a pathway to citizenship. I also want to remind folks that there is actual legislation in Congress right now. 2 years ago, Congress passed the Dream and Promise Act that would allow people to have citizenship, but unfortunately, we have not been able to get that vote in the Senate just yet. But hopefully things will change. We won Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and I think that we have what it takes to give a pathway to citizenship to all of our families and all of our communities. I'll pass it on to Andrea or Luz.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that, like youth like myself and Luz and Claudia that live so close outside of DC, living 15 minutes away. For us, it was so essential and powerful to walk down to DC, steps of Congress, the steps of the US Supreme Court, and to be out here screaming undocumented and unafraid. It was a very powerful moment. You see these fights like the Gaithersburg walkout when we were chanting undocumented, unafraid when the Supreme Court heard the DACA case. And then you see the here to stay when the DACA case was actually released. So these moments are very powerful to all of us. And as a DMV hub, for us being so close, we took a part in these movements because DC is our backyard. And so we made it a point for us to be there and to make our voices heard and have the undocumented youth have representation.
Yeah, so like Andrea said, local and state work is very important when we're trying to push for our rights, right? We can only ask for so much from the federal government when, real change happens in our local and state areas. So what United We Dream does is have state hubs from all across the country where they push for legislation and different things in their state to help protect their undocumented community. Two, for example, here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, we're definitely two sanctuary city bills that we were able to get through, or resolutions that we got to get through to our cities. So the first one was the Gaithersburg Freedom City Ordinance that we were able to stop the collaboration with ICE from our local police officers, stopping discrimination based on your immigration status, the color of your skin, your religious beliefs, your gender identity. We pushed for that in our local community, and we were able to create change drastically for a lot of people that lived here. Another one, which was most recent, was our ICE Out of DC fight, where a coalition of organizations, including us, pushed for Washington, DC to become a sanctuary city, right? And we stopped the collaboration between Metropolitan Police Department and ICE, and we truly were able to call this city of DC a sanctuary city to protect our community here. Other fights include in different states funding for COVID relief, right? So in DC, we were able to push forth and work with other state or city orgs to push for COVID relief checks for our communities. And we're able to, provide that through mutual aid groups, through ways that our community can get help from, regardless of the lack of help we get from the federal government.
Thank you both for sharing that and providing your insights, especially from your community in the DC metro area. Now I want to share with all of you the current state of play pertaining the new administration and everything that is happening that is continuously affecting immigrant communities. At the federal government, Democrats are in control of the White House, the House, and the Senate. Again, thanks to Georgia, and I know that many of you were part of those phone banks, text banks, and we made it happen. So thank you all for taking action. Biden has a plan to address COVID, which includes free vaccines for everyone, including undocumented folks. This is going to help many of our communities and our families, especially those that are most vulnerable, which in this case happen to be undocumented immigrants. 14,000 for individuals, including those in mixed status families. Money for higher education institutions that can be accessed by undocumented students. It does not provide legalization for undocumented essential workers. Next slide, please. And as Andrea was mentioning, DACA is back to its original form. DACA was reopened essentially in the month of December to its original form, which means that new DACA applicants are welcome to apply for the first time. But we also, and so this means that hundreds and hundreds of immigrant youth can apply now. We are waiting a court decision from Texas that may end the program once again. But we also expect the Biden administration to reinstate and expand the program or similar once he's in power. Hopefully it happens next time, sometime next week. And also United We Dream is currently helping, so it's supporting, helping many new DACA applicants apply for DACA for the first time, and it's helping with the DACA funds or DACA application funds. And it will be great of all of you to go to DACAsback.com and donate so we can continue to support other immigrant youth that are in desperate need of applying, especially during this time.
Thank you, Claudia, for talking about the state the state of play that we're in, right? Just last Tuesday, we launched our Undeniable campaign, which is our most recent campaign, to hold the Biden administration and Democrats accountable for all the promises that they given to our community, right? We want to protect all immigrants now because we know that we have a trifecta and we're able to push forth more legislation, more executive orders for our community to be heard. So what United We Dream is doing is, sharing stories and being able to be there, to know that, we're not political toys. We're people that have to push forth these changes to happen, right? So a little bit about our Undeniable campaign is some demands that we're asking for the Biden administration to do, right? The first demand is citizenship for all 11 million undocumented immigrants. We demand citizenship for all 11 million undocumented immigrants and that it doesn't grow the deportation force of ICE and CBP. A lot of our youth, some don't even qualify for DACA and our parents don't qualify for DACA. So we're trying to push for a legislation that can protect all of us, not some of us, and without any ties to ICE and CBP. Number two, defunding ICE and CBP and police. We're demanding to defund ICE, defund CBP, and defund police, including ending the collaboration between these forces. At times, communities are ravished because of the police collaboration with ICE. A lot of our community is being deported because of small traffic violations or things that happen in their community because of the police. So we're pushing to defund these agencies so our community can feel safe these upcoming years. Our demand number 3 is immediate protections. We demand immediate protections for our people, starting with the reinstatement and expansion of DACA and TPS. Like I said before, a lot of our members don't even qualify for DACA because of the year that they came, right? And we're going to push for those expansion of these programs to be able to protect our community while also pushing for permanent protections, because this is just temporary protections that our communities have. Number 4 is an inclusive COVID-19 relief bill to demand more of a broad, inclusive COVID-19 relief and recovery that doesn't discriminate on the basis of immigration status. I can talk a little bit about my experience of being undocumented and having that lack of help. My family, unfortunately, got COVID last month, and it was really hard for us to get by because of all the exclusions that are given in our community. We had to depend on mutual aid funds, on food banks, and it was really hard for us, and we need to know that our community is safe during those times, being able to have access to the vaccines when they're available to the general public, to have access to these stimulus checks for our community, right? And number 5 is a moratorium on enforcement. We are demanding that there is a moratorium on enforcement, the release of immigrants held in ICE and CBP detention camps and their closure, and the right for people to come back home that have been deported. So we're going to be pushing for these 5 things these upcoming years. And, now we're launching our digital campaign so you guys can follow and share all these stories that we have.
Hi.
So this is a story of one of our members in Maryland, and she is demanding the Biden administration to push forth these changes that we're demanding.
My name is Morelis and I'm a senior at High Point High School. As a Black undocumented woman in this country, my experience is undeniable because I have seen that one of the most characteristic things about this community is that we don't give up. We don't give up, and when we fight for something, we fight until we get it. That's why ICE should be abolished, because we are not just numbers or statistics. We are human beings with a life and a purpose. This administration and this institution specifically have been terrifying us to the point that we go outside and we don't know if we might come back and see our families again. This administration has completely forget the fact that before immigrants and before undocumented people, we are humans and we should be treated as such.
And that was one of our student leaders in Maryland who is part of that group of undocumented youth that weren't able to qualify for DACA. And knowing that we're going to be demanding and pushing for protections for all 11 million of us, while also holding ICE and CBP accountable.
Yes, and if you want to join United We Dream or want to learn more about our Undeniable campaign, text Undeniable to 877-877 to sign our petition to hold the Biden administration accountable. Share our post on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at United We Dream, and donate to our DACA application fund on renewmydaca.com.
And now we're going to open up this space for questions, and we're going to try to answer them as much as possible. I know that there was a link shared for you guys to submit your questions, and we're going to be trying to answer all of them in this time period.
Thank you. So there is already a question, and it says, before on the panel, someone mentioned that groups companies profit from deportation. Which ones and how so? I can answer that question. So there are multiple groups that profit from deportations, some of them being a couple of airlines, such American Airlines, United Airlines, and the way that this works is that they collaborate with ICE and CBP. So if people are being detained and taken into custody and then ultimately being deported, American Airlines, United Airlines usually provides those services for people to be flown back to their countries of origin. Another group that also profits from deportations, it's the GEO group, which is the group that usually serves or it's in charge of incarceration. Oftentimes they have quotas, and so they try to round up as many people as possible and put them in those deportation proceedings so that they can fill their quotas and get the money that they gain from deportations. And last but not least, Amazon, the website that you order things from the commodity of your computer. They also profit from deportations. Amazon provides the software that ICE uses for their databases. So that's where they keep people's information and they do all of their databases. So don't shop Amazon, use your local businesses and help small businesses grow and thrive. Let's see if there are other questions, or I don't know if Luz or Andrea have other groups that profit from deportation that you would like to mention.
Definitely the private detention camps, right? They profit from everybody that's inside those cells, and they rack them all up. And it's really heartbreaking to see everything that we see online. And we're pushing for that to stop, right? And knowing that they profit from every single person that gets detained, really, it's I don't even know. It's really sad. We have another question from someone that says, is there a specific legislation proposed to make our 11 million citizens?
I can answer that too. So I don't remember the year, I think it was 2017 or 2018. We passed the Dream and Promise Act, which so far it's the most progressive legislation that Congress has seen pertaining immigration. There is no statute that says, yes, we are gonna give you immigration reform, but if we do that, we also have to put money into ICE and CBP. This is legislation that does not criminalize people or penalize people um, for misdemeanors or um, other things, and it does not use people as bargaining chips. Uh, it's been the most progressive legislation that has passed only in the House, not in the Senate. And at this point in time, we do not have legislation for the 11 million of undocumented people that live here. But we hope it's something similar to the Dream and Promise Act, that it's progressive. It does not give money to ICE and CBP. CBP stands for Coast and Border Patrol, and that gives a pathway to citizenship without harming our communities or funding organizations or entities that in fact hurt our communities even more.
I saw another question. Why not put a petition to submit to Amazon that Bezos is not a friend of the current administration? I saw that a couple local groups and orgs have been pushing for Amazon to cut their ties with ICE. I believe that the campaign was called No Tech for ICE, and it was led by orgs in New York that were pushing for the Amazon, like pushing in the Amazon headquarters for them not to collaborate with ICE and give them those tools to be able to control and survey the border and give the access to ICE agents, give those tools to ICE agents to then detain and deport a lot of our community. So there is current campaigns that are happening, and it's our duty to be able to push for those campaigns to work, and for everyone to be involved in trying to push this to stop.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, I think that at the end of the day, I honestly feel that it will be hard for Amazon to end that collaboration. They're getting millions and millions of dollars from the administration, and they're contracting with the government. So I think that that it will be challenging. But hopefully we are able to achieve that in the future. I think there are other questions. At the present time, do undocumented veterans have pathway to legalization?
No, unfortunately not. There's actually a group that there's a group in Mexico called Deported Veterans, and unfortunately, despite their service to this country, a lot get deported, and a lot don't have status. So unfortunately, there's no pathway to citizenship. That's why we're pushing for 11 million of us to have this. I saw another question was that there are reports that the Biden administration presented a tentative immigration plan. to some immigrant group leaders. Do you all know anything about that?
I don't think we know anything about that at the current time, but we are excited and looking forward to knowing what it's about. And you know, the most important thing for us is that we won't be used as bargaining chips. We have heard that the administration wants to prioritize immigrant youth and other groups as well that have had some sort of status. And can't wait for that to happen, but I don't want to be used as a bargaining chip. I want to make sure that whenever there is a legislation that my mom, that my family, and that my community are also included, but as long as we are not putting more money into enforcement, ICE and CBP. And with that, we have come to the end of our time together. Thank you all so much for joining. I'll pass it on to Luz and Andrea for closing remarks as well. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for joining this space to learn how to get more involved. I'm really grateful for everyone here, and hope to see you guys in the near future holding them accountable.
Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for joining this space. And I hope you guys get more involved and support this cause, and make sure you check out United We Dream and donate to our DACA renewal fund. Thank you guys.
Thank you everyone. Have a good one.